The Los Angeles Angels win total improved substantially in 2025, but still left a lot to be desired, where some players took a step forward, others took a step back, and don't get me started on the pitching staff. Will this team ever escape mediocrity, or will they fail to take that next step once again? Hello, my name is Avery Taylor, and welcome to Rebuild October, a series where we rebuild every single team across the month of October. So, whether you're looking for your favorite team or just generally curious as to how every team should approach the offseason, then this is the series for you. And with that being said, let's go ahead and get into the video. As you can see from the war by position, there are some clear strengths at shortstop and left field, with clear weaknesses at second, third, and starting pitching, amongst others. The team will need to rely on the right combination of bounce backs and free agents to make noise in the AL West. However, before we talk about the additions the team needs to make, we need to make decisions on the impending free agents. The Angels are currently faced with 7 unrestricted free agents, as well as one club option over Jose Quijada. Of the impending free agents, the Angels will only hold on to 2, both of which are bullpen pieces, with the first of which being Kenley Jansen. Jansen continues to be a very solid closer as we get later into his career. He does a decent job with the walks and strikeouts with that nasty cutter, and he rode that to posting a 2.59 ERA in 62 games. He doesn't have the most wowing underlying numbers, so it's important to get him at a good cost. Andrew Chafin, on the other hand, has both the traditional numbers and the underlying ones for the Angels, who want to keep this guy in town. A sub 2.5 ERA across 42 games is reason enough to want someone back in a less than stellar bullpen. He pretty much does everything well except the walks, which can plague him at times. However, when he is in the zone, nobody's touching him. As for Jose Quijada, he will meet the same fate as the other 5 unrestricted free agents and hit the open market. Quijada simply hasn't pitched enough games to warrant the Angels picking up his option. Only logging 34 games across 3 seasons will ultimately be his demise. For potential prospects the team could see in 2026, there are a number of names, but none of them bigger than Tyler Bremner. Bremner was just taken in the 2025 draft and has yet to pitch a single inning of professional baseball. However, would I be shocked if the team pushes him to the majors with their aggressive prospect pushing? No. Bremner has a high floor as a prospect with his fastball and changeup combo, and I wouldn't be shocked to see him with the organization's past. A name that made it to the major leagues to the surprise of everybody was Ryan Johnson. Johnson made the opening day roster out of spring training despite never pitching a game in the minor leagues. He had solid strikeout to walk numbers, but was getting shelled when teams actually made contact. And then he was sent back to high A, where he logged 12 starts of really dominant baseball. Where and when we'll see him again, I don't know, but if the Angels will do anything, it'll be wildly aggressive with their prospects. The most traditional route taken by a prospect so far would have to go to George Clausen. With a big time fastball, curveball, and slider, he has the tools to be an elite pitcher, but the control has always been his biggest question mark. He had a dismal year at Double-A with a 5.22 ERA, but FIP and xFIP were much kinder to him. The BABIP against him was just insane, and if that straightens out for him in AAA next season, I wouldn't be shocked to see him at some point early on in the year. And then the final name to talk about is Nelson Rada, a 20-year-old center fielder who reached AAA. He put together a much more complete season on the whole, walking more, striking out less, and stealing way more bags. He plays a really good center field and would be a great piece to unlock this outfield. He doesn't have the highest pedigree after a rough 2024, but he was headed in a really good direction in 2025. If he can continue that, he should crack the majors in no time, if not from opening day, which is what he's going to do in this rebuild. Joining him in the returning lineup will be Logan O'Hoppe at catcher, who desperately needs a bounce back, with Nolan Shanwell at first, Christian Moore at second, Zach Neto at short, Taylor Ward in left, Joe Adell in right, and Mike Trout hopefully bouncing back at DH. The bench will return Travis d'Arnaud as well as Bryce Teodosio. There's one player that needs to be traded to unclog the corner outfield / DH spot, and that is Jorge Soler. Soler was unimpressionable in his first season in Los Angeles, and a change of scenery might do both sides some good. Here's where the Angels will flip him to the Mariners, who will likely be looking to replace some of the pop that they lost in free agency. This is as much of a trade to clear the outfield as it is a salary dump, so the return will be limited to Casey Lugamina. Lugamina has really struggled across his career, but he is a reliever that has some interesting quirks. His underlying numbers are much more favorable, and with a few tweaks to his sweeper, he could be a great find for the Angels. He has the great profile with his four-seamer, sinker, and changeup. It's just that that sweeper has been falling a little short, making him one-dimensional. All in all, a good potential find for the Angels and a salary dump. Turning our attention back to the positional players for a minute, the Angels still have 3 spots left to fill, which the team will turn to free agency to do. In this episode, we'll be finally dipping into that international market, and the Angels will be grabbing Sungwon Song, a third baseman from the KBO. Song has really taken off over the last 2 seasons on the offensive side, posting an OPS over 900 in both years, while hitting 44 bombs in total over that time. In a weak market at third base, the Angels need to find an advantage somewhere, and taking a big chance on Song could be worth their while. He doesn't have the longest track record of success, and that transition is always scary. However, for a bit of backup, the team will grab Paul DeYoung in the case Song can't handle the big leagues. DeYoung isn't the flashiest signing, and he finished the 2025 year on a poor track. What DeYoung is, though, is stability. He can play around the infield and can swing a decent enough bat to not be a complete liability. And the final addition to the positional players will be Jesse Winker, who's coming off a season riddled with injuries. Again, not the flashiest signing, but this team desperately needed a left-handed bat coming off the bench, and Winker is good enough to hold a roster spot. He has been a near league average bat the last 2 seasons and could be a good addition with him coming off such an injury riddled season. Moving to the rotation, we will return 3 names in the form of Yusei Kikuchi, Jose Soriano, and Caden Dana, who I don't love starting the year in the rotation, but realistically, I couldn't have the Angels signing 3 starters. This group has a very low floor, but a decent ceiling. That's why this team will need to grab some stable but solid arms to complement the rest of the staff. The Angels will start by grabbing Adrian Hauser, who started the year on fire with the Chicago White Sox, but cooled off when he made the move to Tampa Bay. He isn't a strikeout artist or particularly great at limiting hits, but he does keep a lot of contact on the ground and limits walks. That recipe is the makings of a solid pitcher who will likely outperform their batted ball profile. Joining him in the rotation will be Chris Bassett, who's the model for a consistent middle of the rotation starter. Again, not the greatest under the hood numbers, but does great keeping things mostly on the ground with limited free passes. He's also a workhorse, posting over 30 starts in 4 straight seasons. The innings are also something that this unit desperately needs with its injury history and rockiness. For the bullpen, it will return 5 familiar faces with Ben Joyce, who I believe will be healthy by opening day, as well as Luis Garcia, Brock Burke, Reed Detmers, and Robert Stevenson. Health is the name of the game when it comes to these relievers. If they can stay healthy, this bullpen can be a sneaky good unit in 2026. And that's going to do it for the rebuild. This team's kind of in a weird spot, being financially strained by Trout and Rendon's contract, while also having a mix of players that need to pull their weight better than they did in 2025. If everything clicks for this unit, then this team could be a surprising team in the AL West, which is in turmoil. And if it doesn't, it could very well be another season stuck in mediocrity.